names. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you to everyone who's putting their names into the chat box on the side. All right, well, welcome to those who are already here and those that are coming. Some of you are very familiar with these leadership development calls and have been coming for many years. Some of us, I think many of us today, actually, including myself, are a lot newer to these calls. But they are one of the platforms that MCLD has where we can all come together and share and learn from each other across different countries. There'll be lots of time for discussion and getting to know each other. But please feel free to put any questions, comments, thoughts, additions into the chat box at any time. And also, feel free to raise your hand. You can use at the bottom of your screen. There should be a raise hand feature. Otherwise, you can turn on your camera and wave your hand just like that, or if no one else is speaking, you can just go off mute and share. And we'll also be paying attention to the chat box. Sarah, you can go to the next slide. For those of us who are new or newer to these calls, this call really focuses, I'm learning, on building community and having a place to explore and brainstorm different questions or ideas or topics that are relevant to all of us and to all of our leadership, both within MCLD and outside of our work with MCLD. It's a place to connect, to learn, and to co-create. And one of the things that we always start these calls with, and again, by we, I mean people who've been part of this for a really long time, is a small breakout room to get to know each other better, sharing something that's not always so serious or work related. You can go to the next slide, Sarah. So this month, we're going to talk about what our favorite holiday is, our celebration. April is a month with a lot of holidays across different traditions, and not all of us recognize or celebrate those different holidays, but we're going to go into small groups of 3 people each and just have a few minutes, about 5 minutes, to share with each other what is our favorite holiday or celebration across the entire year. And when we come back, we will have a little share back just to learn about the other people on this call. And just in a few, like 30 seconds, hear what each group learned about each other. So when you go into your breakout rooms, please identify someone to be the reporter and share back. So with that, Sarah, do you mind sending us? There's just on your screen, you can click the blue button that says join, and it will take you right to the breakout rooms. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. If you weren't able to figure out your breakout room invite, we can also chat just right here. Who do we have? Samuel, how are you? Oh, Samuel left. Béranger, bonjour, how are you?
Otherwise, I will volunteer. Thank you, Annette.
Okay. You will volunteer me. Yeah, so it was me, Nellie, and Sophie, and we came from two of us from the United States, and Sophie, you're from Kenya or
No, from Uganda.
Uganda? I knew it. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry. So the two Americans among us love Thanksgiving. It brings people together, and it's just kind of a non-sectarian, be grateful for everything in your life. And, you know, it just doesn't have to be for any specific thing. People can come together, different groups, they can have their own Friendsgiving. Nellie was mentioning how good the turkey is and the cranberry sauce. And Sophie from Uganda was telling us about family. This is about family coming together from near and far, people that you wouldn't ordinarily see all the time. And it's so special. So that's a quick summary from our group.
Thank you, Annette. Would anyone else like to share from their groups? Jane, I see you just went off.
Yes, we were with Steve. Justin joined us but dropped off. A lady from Zimbabwe also joined us but dropped off. I think they had network issues. So Steve is from Kenya, and Steve loves the Christmas holiday because that is the time he can put his laptop aside and just enjoy family time. Yeah, so that is why he loves Christmas. On the other side, I love Easter holidays. At first, it's a little longer, and then being a practicing Christian, it's important to me because it just, brings back the real life in me. I really believe in the aspect of resurrection, so it's very important to me. Yeah.
Thank
So
you,
in Kenya,
Jane.
we have our holiday from Thursday, from Holy Thursday to Easter Monday. So it's such a long one, and we have a lot
Wow.
of fun during that time. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jane. Anyone else want to share back?
Yes, thank you. I'm here, Samuel.
Thank you. Go ahead, Samuel.
Thank you. In our team, we're three, myself, Charles, and Noah. Noah is from Rwanda, and Charles is based in USA. And I think we didn't have enough time for everyone to talk about their best holidays. So Noah talked about Christmas holiday, because this is a time that people tend to meet with their families in the villages. Of course, even Charles, supported that to say Christmas holiday, but I don't know whether that's a period that he also enjoys most, or he had not yet mentioned his time. And for me, someone from Zambia, I talked about Easter holiday. I think this is a time that we celebrate the birth and death of Jesus Christ. So this is a time that I enjoy so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Samuel. Anyone else want to share?
Hey, I'll share. This is Luann. I was with Jack. It's probably good it was just the two of us because we we probably wouldn't have time for a third person to introduce themselves. But we got off track, of course, talking about work, but we share the same favorite holidays, Christmas and New Year's. So both from the US. So
Thanks, Luann. Anyone else? All right, well, if anyone else wants to share, we'll move on, but you can put it into the chat boxes also. All right, Sarah, do you mind going to the next slide? Back, further back. Yes, thank you. All right, so this month we're going to continue exploring a topic that we started to discuss on the March leadership development call, and that's what it takes and what we're learning from the experience of establishing national associations. And this isn't just relevant to National Association coordinators or leads. It's relevant to, I mean, all of us are in some way connected to a different national association. So some of us are advising on that, some of us are members, maybe part of the steering committees, maybe we're not even part of the movement for community-led development, but we are friends of and supporters of community-led development and the national associations in our countries. And honestly, these are topics that are relevant for our work outside of MCLD also. So we hope to hear from everybody. This is an especially relevant topic, though, for us at MCLD, because MCLD has gone through a global restructure that many of you have heard about in different calls. MCLD used to be national chapters with a headquarters and incubated in the Hunger Project. And recently it's become a network of networks with different national associations in each country. And this gives all of the national associations more flexibility, and it also helps to recognize the governing power of all of the different countries, all of the national associations in MCLD. And each national association will ultimately have 2 representatives who participate in a global assembly, and that global assembly will govern all of MCLD. And we'll start planning for that first global assembly shortly. But the new structure, it allows different national associations to make more programming and advocacy decisions. And as you can see, there's a lot of different countries, a lot of different national associations in different stages of establishing themselves. So this topic of what it takes and what we're learning from that process is really very present for many of us. And Gunjan spoke on the last call about it a little bit. You can go to the next slide, Sarah. There's a process, a sort of formal process for being recognized as a national association. And there's resources on what that takes on the website. It includes, guidelines. It includes the umbrella strategy for national associations, which really was developed on these leadership calls, and many of you were a part of putting together. One more slide, Sarah. But that's the sort of formal process. And then there's the experience of establishing national associations. And this looks different in different countries. It's not one size fits all. And because different national associations are in different stages, as we saw on that previous slide, there's a lot that we can learn about what it takes. Last month, Steve Ogutu from MCLD Kenya gave a really quick overview of what it has taken MCLD Kenya to develop really since 2019. And today we're going to dig more into that. This is sort of the broad trajectory or flow, but yeah, it's not a straight line, and it's not one size fits all, because different countries require different approaches, stages, and steps. You can go to the next slide. So before we hear more from Steve, we just wanted to hear quickly from some of you on what does it mean to be a part of a national association for you? What are the important features of it? Why is it important to belong to a national association? And if you've been a part of that or joining one, what's been challenging or exciting? And I'm just gonna pause and see if people have thoughts on that. And I know many of you on this call have been very involved in that process, from Noel and Annette and Béranger and Pascal, and many others.
I'll start, Nelly. sharing from my experience. I belong to the Uganda National Association. And what does it mean? One, it starts with the ambition, having a shared purpose and identifying meaning in the association itself. So for the Movement for Community-Led Development Uganda chapter has offered us that space as people who are ambitious in deepening community-led development. And so that's the beginning of the value that makes meaning for me to belong to this space. But also finding the importance is about finding a safe space to connect with shared minds that are contributing to kind of a bigger goal, yeah. And so it brings me joy belonging to a national association because I'm not doing it alone. I have leverage from the different other experts in the room that I can tap in and then network with and also build relations. What is challenging? Well, whatever I said is exciting, but also to see a national association grow. I'm a network weaver and I've been most of my life working with networks. So to start something and you see it grow and make impact and being embraced by different people from different walks of the world is exciting. What's challenging is about managing members' ambitions and expectations because it's an open space, open door, and everyone comes with their ambitions. So managing this is the challenge and sustaining growth. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you, Joanna. Yeah, I just didn't say. I'm the chairperson of MCLD Uganda, and so I've shared and I've been there from the start when this was formed. So it's been quite an exciting journey.
Thank you, Sophie. And I think that that's precisely something that we'll hear more about from MCLD Kenya's perspective also around managing expectations and helping to motivate people to really invest in it. Thank you. That was also a really beautiful, I thought, description.
Thanks, Nelly.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Someone come from Zambia. I think
Oh,
when
Samuel, can you try going a little closer to the microphone?
okay, are you able
Yeah,
to hear me?
that's a little better, yeah.
Great, thank you. I think for me, when you look at the issues, the importance of belonging to a national chapter, you know, the movement for community development, the key issue that it does, it brings people together to help them, or institutions together, to help them understand the importance of community-led approach to development. And as more NGOs come together or civil society organizations come together to understand the importance of community-led approach, it translates now into whatever each and every institution is doing at community level. They have now knowledge on how they can help the community lead the process of their own development. It also talks about the shift of power from top to the community. So the community should be able to know that they are the ones who are leading the process of development, and NGOs are just facilitating that process. And that's why, for me, I feel it is very, very critical and important, especially in Zambia, because if we can achieve in all sectors where people that we are saving understand that they are the ones who are supposed to lead the process of their own development, then we will be heading to sustainable development within the communities. that will be able to lead to self-reliance among the communities we are serving or the communities we are working with. So the challenges, of course, is the same challenges that my sister mentioned earlier, the previous speaker, organizing the civil society organization to be focused in ensuring that this is achieved, because it is not an easy task, but I think when you understand why you belong to this, it becomes easy to organize, to mobilize, and also to meet. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samuel. That was also really helpful. And I think that, as you said, sort of that helps translate things into action. And it's, as a structure itself, it sort of helps us all figure out what, sustainability, or helps give sustainability and self-reliance more meaning, I think, I hope.
Thanks. I think I would go next from Makueni County, as my name is Iparambwa. As I had said earlier, I am privileged to be a government official within one of the subnationals of Kenya, the county government of Makueni County. We have, as a council, benefited in a big way by being part of the National Association of the Movement for Community-Led Development. Since the year 2019, we are among the counties that have really benefited. One of the key things is, and of importance, is the shared knowledge that we are able to attain. Once we come together, different organizations from different theories of change, including government and the MCLD leadership at national level and sometimes at the international level, just hearing the different perspectives and coming together in a manner that we get a shared vision and shared knowledge among ourselves has been a very critical element. The other has been the element of co-creation. Over the years, since 2019, we have been co-creating the model in terms of, for example, at the government side, the law of devolution, as opposed to the spirit and the principles of community-led development, just trying to see how they mix, how they converge, and how then we can co-create the models for devolved service delivery. That is community-led, community-owned, and community-managed. That co-creation has been as a result of the national pursuit. The next one is about networking. We've been able to network with various organizations.
Also,
Yes.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. We'll also come back to you a little later in the call to hear more. Is it okay if we save some of this for that? But this is so rich. We're hearing so many ideas.
That's in order.
Okay, we'll come
Thank
back to you a little bit later. But that was really clear and specific ways in which being part of a national association has been meaningful. So we will hear more on that soon. And yes, as Zippy said, I know I've heard from Zippy and from Steve that she has really been a champion for this from the beginning. Is there anyone else who wants to share any thoughts on this now?
Yes,
Go ahead.
Justine. Yes, this is Justine. I belong to MCLD Uganda and from World Vision, Uganda. Yes, a few benefits to add on what Sophie mentioned. One thing I've seen is about education, more of knowledge gain to the people that belong there. We come in from different backgrounds and you realize that we are doing different things, But in terms of course of CLD, we are learning. It's a journey of learning, and this is more of peer learning. What are these ones are doing? How are they doing it? How is it contributing to community development? And we become better people from there. Then I've seen leadership here. I participated in the first annual general meeting for MCLD Uganda, and we had people taking on positions from the leadership that was there, the steering committee. And I saw that the people from the different organizations they are coming from, their leadership gains, they are having leadership development. People are competing and they were ready to serve. So that takes us back into the organizations we are coming from, that as we take on this leadership kind of development, we will be better leaders where we come from. Then professional development. You know, when we are in our organizations, you would think that probably you know it all. But when we come into professionalism and you're talking about development and we are talking about community development, you're able to realign yourself professionally and you belong somewhere. So that kind of alignment helps us to do the right thing and provide the right direction to our organizations where we are coming from. Yes, a few challenges. Despite the fact that the organizations are different and could be running different projects, sometimes it might be hard for us to come up with probably a common goal. Bringing people together with a common goal, you really need to put in a lot of effort to help people understand why we are focusing in this direction. Then it could be about subscription. Sometimes these organizations, associations are not funded, so they do not have a particular source of funding. And yet the expectations from the different organizations is quite high, that sometimes the organizations come in to subscribe expecting that the association will fund the different projects they have. So that at a certain time may be like when they are not meeting the expectations of the organization, and it may affect how probably these people are participating. But also if you talk about subscription, when we come to how organizations run, we find that probably some of them have budgets maybe from donors that are approved, and you haven't planned for probably the subscription. It's not approved by the donor who's giving you money. So those subscriptions at a certain time might be hard, that organizations are not ready to partner with some little money that can run the associations, and it will be hard to coordinate these organizations at the end of the day. And yet we need to see that they run, because they do not have a particular source of funding.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Justine. And yeah, the annual general meeting in Uganda, I think, was really impressive. And I hope that on another call we can learn more from MCLD Uganda on how that was organized, again, because it's relevant to MCLD, but to all of us in all of our roles, on how to convene so many people and on the expectations and managing it, and how we're not a funding institution, and the challenges that come with challenges and positive things that come with that, I think are important. And again, I think Steve will share to that. We will have time in breakout rooms for longer, like 20-minute breakout rooms a little bit later, and can keep sharing on this. But if there is anyone wants to say anything more at this point, Abate, please go ahead. And if it's okay to just keep it a little bit brief.
All right. Thank you so much. A lot has been said so far, but I would like to comment on to share a few points very quickly. As the Hunger Project Ethiopia, we believe that it helps us, to overcome or to address challenges that those associations commonly facing. So it's very helpful, to overcome challenges together, and at the same time to identify, areas of working together, so to identify which areas and where and how to work together. So it's very important to collaborate, okay, or to come together as an association. Again, here it gives a power, okay, and to be unimpactful, particularly on good governance issues. Taking, for example, here my country, Ethiopia, okay, we are supposed to address very lots of issues in regards to, like, for example, in decentralization issues, okay, those policies has to be implemented on the ground. So it gives us the power to be unimpactful while we come together, okay, we can possibly advocate for the same goal and to be impactful. So impactful is another point. The other one is I think with regards to the challenges, I would like to focus here as an important challenge that we are now currently facing and listening or receiving from different members here. They raise financial resources, okay? Like, for example, here, the one organization located in different places, okay? While we are thinking of organizing a certain kind of training or workshops, so they may not be able to attend, okay, as what we are located in one areas. So financial resource is as a challenge. Again, here, sometimes we do face commitment, okay, lack of commitment, okay. Maybe there are organizations, okay, commit their time for other activities rather than for this association, so that here commitment and financial challenges
Yeah.
are of the very big ones. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And that's a really great transition, actually, to, I think, Steve and MCLD Kenya in just a second. And I also see, and another thing that you brought up there is a topic that I hope we can talk about in a future call, is with member organizations being located all across the different countries, how to find ways to connect people better, even, as you say, within our financial constraints. You know, we don't have a lot of funding to do this kind of stuff, but what are ways that we can make sure that people who aren't in the capitals of all of our countries can really participate? And so I hope we can talk about that more at some point. I also see that Mercy put into the chat box, standardization and personal and professional development are important points. But as I said, we'll come back, Jack, if it's all right, we'll come back and have breakout rooms and can talk about this more. But if you want to put it in the chat box also, I just want to make sure we have time to hear from Steve and Zippy and Jane. And I'll share this slide afterwards. So you can skip that. We'll share that by email. So as I mentioned, last month, Steve gave an overview of what MCLD Kenya's process or experience had been. And one of the things that he really highlighted was that the critical first steps for MCLD Kenya was really around building buy-in, which touches on these points around managing expectation and keeping people invested and motivated. And so I think this will be very pertinent to the points that people have just brought up. So we're going to hear from Steve, as well as more from Zippy, who we already met, and from Jane Anyango, who are part of MCLD Kenya. And then we will go into breakout rooms and talk more about why these structures are important to us, and also ideas and experiences from different national associations and outside of our MCLD work, on how to go about building buy-in, which is not so easy. So Steve, over to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Nelly. And hello to the rest of our colleagues and partners from wherever you're joining from. I think the previous session has somehow summarized what I wanted to say. But nonetheless, I'm going to, like Nelly has mentioned, co-present with Zippy and Jane. And we hope to have a very interactive session thereafter. So Sarah, if you could move to the next slide, please. Thanks. So for us, like Nelly mentioned, the first step during the MCLD Kenya formation was actually to build buy-in. And by buy-in here, we meant, just getting partnerships, that could help us take off the ground, and I'm going to highlight some of the 4 steps under this and that helped us to build this buy-in. And of course, one of them was identifying champions. And here we are talking about organizations, both state and non-state actors that were a bit CLD leaning, those that embraced the idea of putting communities at the center and front of development, And in the context of Kenya, we had an organization called Global Communities and then Haifa International that were among the few INGOs at that time that were a bit, leading towards CLD concepts in Kenya. And therefore, through them, we were able to reach out to other like-minded organizations in terms of community-based organizations. You get to hear from Jane, who's from Polycom Development Initiative, that's doing a lot of work in championing girls' rights here in Kenya, and many other organizations that cut across different sectors. And of course, also government, both local and national government. And for us, one of those was Makueni County that had a very a forward-looking leadership through their then governor, Professor Kivuta Kibwana, who I'm sure some of you maybe listened to during those previous calls we've had. And after that, we now started to build membership, and here we recognize we are referring to membership in terms of organizations that are credible, that are legitimate, that are doing embracing somehow the concept of CLD in the respective sectors they are intervening around, whether it's at the community level or at the national level, just reaching out to them, And with this, we were then able to, and let me just also say here that one of the things that I think has been alluded to here, and which was also a challenge, was how do you make members or new members see value in belonging to MCLD, and addressing those, managing those expectations. So for us, the approach was, we have to talk to people or to organization on what MCLD is and what MCLD is not. And one of the things that we kept emphasizing is MCLD is not a funding organization. We are a network of organizations that are agreeing to work together to address pressing needs affecting communities. And therefore, if we can come together, pool our ideas and resources in terms of time and expertise together, and then if we see an opportunity to apply for funding and things like that, then we can do it collectively. So that gives us the strength as a chapter then before we transition to an association. But also just talking to members on the benefits of belonging to MCLD, the benefits that they'll get when they join as members of MCLD Kenya. And those are things like, accessing mostly free capacity strengthening sessions on areas like governance. We have the CLD assessment tool, which has become a game changer in terms of how CLD is done, both at the community, both at the CSOs and at the government level, and it's become really embraced. and many other opportunities, but also telling members that, when you join, you also get to network with like-minded people, not just in Kenya, but also when you have the global calls, you get to build new partnerships that can help organizations, individually to meet certain needs and collaborate to meet certain needs that they may have. And we have numerous examples around that. And then the next step for us under this bit was to set up really structures, because we recognize that people want to associate with bodies that appear organized, that are organized, and that have structures and that look credible. And therefore, one of the things that we did was to come up with a steering committee, and different other committees, around fundraising, around outreach. Remember, and these are very important because as we were planning for the launch of MCLD Kenya in 2019, this structure became very important. We used to meet monthly, to just look at how can we fast track the launch of MCLD Kenya, and what do we need to do? What do partners need to bring on board? And people donated time, people donated in-kind support, in terms of other organizations said, we will print the programs, for example. We will use whatever we have in-house to support the launch. And that was a lesson that we learned, that it's very important to have those kind of structures in place, and not just have them, but make them work. When you're talking about committees, also we ensure that they are gender balanced. We ensure that they're inclusive in terms of gender, but also in terms of youth inclusion. PWD, people living with disability also feel included, and that creates ownership. People feel valued. People feel appreciated in terms of what they bring on the table to help move the needle when it comes to the MCLD agenda in the country. And then the other bit that we also found to be critical is establishing strategic partnerships. And here we are talking about win-win collaborations. I'm going to reference what we have, for example, with the county government of Makueni. Or before I move into that, one of our approach was with these partnerships. We said that we want to formalize, these partnerships in terms of having MOUs, so that we have commitments between parties, even though they are not legally binding commitments, but just commitments, saying we are going to dedicate, we are committing to dedicate our time and resources as an organization over the next 5 years to meet these co-created focus areas over the next 5 years. And therefore, one of those MOUs that we had was with the Makueni County government, and you get to hear from Zippy that we signed. And through that MOU, we've been able to achieve quite a bit. The county committed the human resource to it to make sure that there's full implementation of this MOU. They committed their resources. Now we have the school for CLD. The physical school is built by the county government, and the equipment of it with modern facilities. MCLD is coming in to provide a support in terms of the design and the implementation of the curriculum, and also bringing out the networks we have to help support the school to run effectively and efficiently. And I know Zippy will get to speak to that as well. But also in terms of non-state actors, we've entered into formal partnerships with various organizations, and one of them is the Africa Biodiversity Collaborative Group. And how we entered into this partnership is sometime last year when I was visiting one of the counties that we also collaborating with, called Taita Taveta County. I was having a chat with the governor of that county, and he narrated a story of how some 3 women were going to fetch firewood, and 2 of them, on their way back home, they bump into a mother elephant that was charging. And it was very furious because its baby had dropped into a nearby ditch. And therefore, 2 women managed to escape, but one was killed by this mother elephant. And then what the wildlife authorities did was they airlifted the baby elephant to Nairobi for treatment. But nobody cared about this woman who left behind 4 children. And it happened that a year before, the husband had also been killed by, I think, buffalo. And therefore, the governor question to me was, Steve, so where is the human face in conservation? And that became an advocacy point for MCLD to reach out to conservation organizations to be able to really give priority, community-led approaches in how they design and implement biodiversity projects. And that's how we entered into a partnership with the Africa Biodiversity Collaborative Group, which brings together various major organizations implementing conservation projects in Africa, including WWF, African Wildlife Foundation. And as a result of that, we recently applied with them, a funding, a call for proposal by the U.S. Wildlife and Fisheries Service that's looking at addressing cheetah trafficking, with Kenya as a source of trafficking and Ethiopia as a transit corridor of trafficking. And in this partnership, we are going to support in terms of ensuring that this project truly integrates CLD approaches. We are going to design the curriculum that will help to train actors within that space. And the curriculum is going to be anchored at the School for Community-Led Development, which is at Makueni, also working very closely with the University of Nairobi, but with MCLD really taking lead in that particular objective on integrating CLD in conservation. I think that's pretty much it. And maybe if I could just talk briefly about the pictures you're seeing. The first picture is with the trainees at the School for Community-Led Development. And then the second picture was when we were meeting the USAID Deputy Administrator, Michelle Similas, when she visited in 2022. And I think we have Zippy somewhere there. We also have Jane. She met the MCLD partners over dinner when she visited. I think with that, I'm going to stop there and hand it over to Zippy to continue with the thoughts she started sharing briefly, maybe over 3 or so minutes, and then she'll pass it over to Jane. But we'll keep engaging and responding to any questions you may have on the chat box. Thank you. Zippy, if you can hear me.
So thank you very, very much. You just really given a very good introduction to our national association here in Kenya. And as I began talking before, I had talked about where Makueni County joined when, in terms of when Makueni County joined the National Association of the Movement for Community-Led Development here in Kenya. We did join the association in 2019, and I was sharing the benefits that we have directly received from an experiential perspective. First of all is the fact that although in Kenya we have been implementing the devolution law, and if you look at the laws of devolution, there are key principles and provisions that are concerning the human nature, being humane in service delivery. And number two, proximity of development, the principles of subsidiarity, the principles of people-centeredness. Where are you shifting the power to? Not just from the national government to the county governments, but also from the county governments to the local community members, so that they are able to drive their own development. And therefore is to quickly say that our joining into the movement for community-led development became a paradigm shift in the process of midwiving the devolution agenda in Makueni County, and by so doing the entire country. The entire country is because Makueni County is a benchmark for many things, and especially the public participation model, which is now based on and anchored on the principles of community-led development. We have hosted literally all the 47 counties in this country, including the national government. We have hosted international governments like Mozambique, the government, the Republic of Mozambique, and other national countries that have come to see what is happening and how do they unwrap devolution as it is provided for in the law. And therefore, every time those visitors have come to the national government or visited the World Bank or the other embassies here, there has been a pointer that they should visit Makueni County. And therefore, the trajectory or the paradigm shift began with the co-creation because of the learning that we were able to get immediately from our national association. The reason is because we were able to develop shared knowledge. From a government perspective, we were able to see, so what is this humane nature that non-state actors, including the Movement for Community-Led Development, is pushing for against what are the provisions of the law and what is admissible in terms of devolved service delivery. And it is from there, hearing from the different perspectives, from Ethiopia, from Uganda, from Tanzania, and all other colleagues that are within the East Africa, not even just the national movement, but also the East African caucus, which have also been able to participate through the support of the MCLD Kenya in various forums. We've been able to gather shared knowledge, and every time we come home, we have to reflect around what is there for us as a county, and therefore creating knowledge and creating products of knowledge that we advocate within the government, and also for benchmarking counties and governments. And therefore, after that, there has been series of networking midwived by the MCLD national chapter, mutual benefits, because every time there is a give and take. When you look at our MOU between us and the Movement for Community-Led Development, we can tell beneficiaries of various projects and programs that are run by the county governments for the people, by the people. And we can tell that the people of Makueni are benefiting. They feel more central in the decision-making processes to determine their budget, determine their development, and also the sustainability of their development. We can see the change, that there is greater ownership, there's greater sustainability and utilization, that economic participation in the benefits of development. So as a county, we have also been able to benefit in terms of policy shifts. As a result of learning, there has been advancements of policy shifts. We are currently drafting the community-led development policy as an addendum to the public participation policy to assist us deepen the public participation processes. And that has come as a result of all this learning that we are getting and reflecting within our own context, because our context is government, and governments can equally be community-led in this century of the laws that advocate for devolution worldwide. And therefore, after that, we have received tools beyond capacity, what we call technical assistance from the Movement for Community-Led Development. We have had free lectures from international Movement for Community-Led Development agencies and personalities as well as national. We have had as well Steve Ogutu being a premium lecturer within the school. It is within that then we founded together through the MOU, the School for Devolution and Community-Led Development, is because we feel that community-led development within this small context of Makueni County has become of age, and therefore it has potential now to influence other organizations. It has now potential to influence entities and governments and every other person that says that they are doing service delivery, so that it has a humane nature and that the principles of community-led development are implemented. And therefore, that we have been able to develop or co-create a curriculum for community-led development. We have shared information, including some of the MCLD partners, like the biodiversity team that Steve is talking about. We've been able to bring them on board. We've been able to hear, and we've been able to share with them our context and the challenge here of the elephants and the wildlife conflict here and the conservations that are required. It is true, the situation about wildlife conflict is a reality, but now we see the light as we continue co-creating programs with the biodiversity team under the leadership of the MCLD to see how sustainably can coexistence happen between these communities and also them enjoying their space in terms of doing their development. There has been various partnerships, and as Steve has said, we have had now 2 different proposals to various donors. So that kind of co-creating, including looking for the finances within the space that MCLD is able to find. And then also us within the space of linking the civil society organizations here and the community organizations here to the movement, not just the government. And as they see the government being on the lead, then brings some light in terms of sustainability, in terms of the tomorrow of the programming here at the county. And therefore, we are really excited. Every time we are excited as we continue growing, and we are learning, and we are looking forward to continue exciting every country, every organization to learn from us. This is a school of its own. It's a co-creation daily, learning and documenting what we are hearing. We are currently piloting the epicenter model. And we are learning from the hunger projects in different countries just by these sort of Zoom meetings, and now reading further what resources these organizations has put in media for us to study. We are seeing how we are able to enhance economic development in the counties. So thank you very much for now.
Thank you so much, Zippy. We really appreciate your presentation. And maybe just to also underscore the fact that what this collaboration has done for us as MCLD Kenya is to give us credibility. You know, when you collaborate with government, especially as a nascent organization, from our experience, is it gives you credibility. When you go out there and say, one of our partners, or we have an MOU with the county government of Makueni, then people sit and listen, you know. So these are some of the lessons that we have picked. And with that, I also want to just pass it briefly to my colleague Jane. Jane, if you can hear me, to just share briefly on why you joined MCLD and how being part of this has helped to advance the work that you do as an organization in about 2 minutes, if you don't mind. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Steve. What I want to say first is that we are a very grassroots organization. In fact, we started as a self-help group, we became a community-based organization, and just recently we became an NGO. And now we are Polycom Girls, not Polycom Development Project. So the reason why we joined MCLD is that, you know, first, the name is very attractive to us, was very attractive to us as a community organization, you know, because it's within the community that, you know, that is where the change happens. But it's very hard to get support for community-led initiatives. Mostly communities organize themselves to adjust to programs or initiatives that are brought to them by people who are not members of the community. So having being part of the movement for community-led development, we understood our cause. We got the confidence to be able to push our agenda, to use what works for us without fear. Because at times, you ask yourself, are the donors going to accept this? Is this going to really be recognized by the different actors? But it has worked so well for us. Right now, we have donors who really consult with us, have conversations with us. It has been a journey for us to be trusted and to be able to use what works for us. But we are there right now. We have a project we call the Talking Boxes, which actually came as a result of this, the idea of the community-led development, where we install boxes in schools and we encourage kids to write whatever they want to write, and we organize forums based on whatever they want, as opposed to going on the side and deciding, hey, they need food, hey, the girls need pads, hey, they need this. We are able to negotiate this. We are able to listen to the girls. We are able to have conversations with them. We are able to share ideas and we listen to them. At the end of the day, we are able to measure the impact. So that is why we actually joined a movement for community-led development. And so far, it has worked very well for us. And I think it's even through this that we have been able to grow into an NGO, because listening to other organizations, listening to different actors, listening to Makueni, because they're part of this movement and we are part of the monthly meetings. You listen to the professionalism within the conversation. Then we ask ourselves as a grassroots organization, how do we get professionals from our community to be able to connect the research that have been done within our communities with the reality? Because if we just go alone as grassroots, at times we miss out on something. So that is where we have been. And so far, personally, I celebrate, and very soon I'll be stepping down, because now we have young people from the community who are able to articulate the real issues and make corrections on issues around research. So at the end of the day, we are going to have very, very successful programs, because they are programs that are designed by the people, and the people are also able to advise different actors who are coming into work in the community on what works and the real issues that they want, their priorities within the communities.
Wow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jane. And by the way, Jane is scheduled to have to receive a very prestigious award sometime in May in Washington for her outstanding work, in advancing girls' rights and helping girls access education in her community. Over to you, Nelly, with that. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Steve and Zippy and Jane. To echo Barry in the comments, those were really excellent presentations. And I think there's a lot of interest, I see, also to learn more about the School for Community-Led Development and that partnership with the government, and ways to perhaps replicate that in other contexts. And Jane, I loved what you said, how being with other organizations that are committed to this work and who are also led by communities and for community-led development, that allows more space to push your agenda without fear, because you're in a collective and you're supported by the voice of many people. So thank you all so much. I know it was too short, as always. What we're going to do is we're going to go into 3 breakout rooms for 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll continue talking as the whole group before we close. And I think building on these, there are so many things that got brought up around what being part of MCLD or a national association, a movement like this can do. That I think speak to some of the exciting parts and challenges that we heard in the earlier conversation around, managing expectations, but also having so much potential to amplify our voices when we're in a group. And as Steve brought up earlier, also around networking in Kenya and outside of that, and ways to connect with policymakers and the professional development that there is, but there's these constraints around funding and connectivity and things like that, and how all of that feeds into building the buy-in, which is part of establishing a national association or establishing any kind of network. So we are going to go into different breakout rooms. Sarah, if you don't mind setting those up for just 10 minutes. And there isn't a facilitator necessarily in each one, although Sarah, maybe you can put me and Steve and Pascal in different ones. So just everybody please share, and we'll come back in 10 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so
Pascal.
much.
Everyone is making their way back.
Hi, everyone. Folks are coming back. I know our group could have kept talking for quite some time. I said that one of my learnings is that the breakout rooms need to be a lot longer. Try to have less in these calls in general. But yes, I mean, there's a lot that was brought up around sort of in terms of bringing people in, how, again, which was heard earlier, the name is really helpful. And then being able to get a sense of, are people really interested in being engaged and being, a real active participant in this, and the role also of exchanges, and, how in reality, at this point, that's mostly online for us, but, in person at some point would be great. I'm curious if people had other things they wanted to raise, either the whole group or that they didn't get to say in their group. I know, Jack, you'd wanted to say something earlier. We're about to close, but if anybody has anything they want to add before we do.
If I can add something that I had spoke of that really stood out. I mean, the whole group, same with us, our conversations could have lasted another 30, 45 minutes. But, has noticed as he's going and building the movement in Sierra Leone, is he's noticing a paradigm shift and seeing that, there is a yearning, a desire to shift in how things are done, and that the old way of working is not serving most of the people on this planet. And so I think having that vision and hearing that, and then being able to turn that into something real and tangible. Also, what we discussed, and Justine made a really good point about like formalizing and having things that are tangible instead of just talking. We have action, and I think that's something important for buy-in.
Yeah, thanks, Jacob. And we can keep the space open for a few more minutes after it officially ends if people want to keep talking. But thank you all again for joining. Again, I know that this has been a really special space, and I'm very glad to see that it's continuing. Next month we'll meet again. I'd love to hear people's thoughts on how to use that space. Save the chat. Good idea, Jacob. How to use our call next month, whether we want to continue on with this topic, because clearly there's a lot more to say. If we want to talk about other elements of this whole process of establishing national associations, we heard earlier around what MCLD Uganda did with convening a huge group across all the members. And that's something, I mean, it's action in a different way, but it's tangible. It's coming together. We talked in our group about like the power of actually seeing each other in person, not just virtually. Or different topics. Next week, we're going to be having our monthly global call, and that will be focused on thinking about healing and how trauma and care is actually a part of what we deal with every day and how to integrate it into our work and into our systems thinking also. So that could be a topic we explore in the leadership calls, or this point that we got that brought up earlier about finding ways to, connect even with more rural areas where connectivity might be difficult within our means. So if you have thoughts on that, or if you have just any feedback on these calls, ideas, things that you want to see more of, et cetera. I know we've talked about that, but offline, please feel free to send them our way. Also, good questions for those breakout rooms in the beginning. Please send. Otherwise, thank you all for joining. And if anyone wants to stay on, please do. Again, like Jack, you didn't get to raise your point to the group earlier, so I don't know if you have anything you want to say, or we'll be sure to save the chat also. Thanks, everyone. You can just leave as you are ready. And you can also go offline, go off mute and just say bye to everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
care.
Thank you
Bye,
for the opportunity.
everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. And Noelle, I'm sorry that you didn't have a chance in the group after coming in late to share.
We are not guest yet, so maybe it's
Bye all. I don't know if are people who are. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, one idea is like for just the amount of, there's a lot of power in a lot of ways, brain power, network power, on these calls, and how can we direct that energy, and how can we create, from these calls outcomes that we can then track. I feel like this is such a good space that we can talk, and we can build upon these conversations, share out these conversations, but this is a group of leaders, so how can we go out and lead and act and turn into action?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think it also connects to one that I was just having yesterday, because we're setting up these different working groups. There's one on community-led monitoring evaluation, on communications and advocacy that'll get started. There's one that's focused on U.S. government advocacy, and we were talking about, like, what's the role of the working groups? Is it to take the action, or is it to convene all these members who then, in all of their own ways, take action? Sometimes, in their roles as part of MCLD, but also just probably often as their own organizations, but with the ideas and partnership and maybe like working with other members to go do that. And I think that applies also to some of these calls. Like, how much are they a space for us to come together and share learning and ideas and find other people to work with them on, versus then go out from this role and take the action? And I don't know the answer.
Okay, I was just about to say, what are your thoughts? And I don't think we have to have answers or solutions. I think that's something that can be shared out and discussed and pondered about on one of these calls. But I think having something where, like, for example, like Jack being here, like what are the communities that are around, areas where he's going to be working? What are the organizations that are tied? Does MCLD need to is that an area for them to scale and create more relationships? I think maybe that ties into your working group idea, but having just like sharing out and getting what other people's opinions are in between these meetings, so that we can have a better understanding of maybe some solutions moving forward the rest of the year. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think probably there are other connections that we can bring into the discussion. For example, we're collaborating with several other organizations, IEEE Smart Village, that's the humanitarian arm of IEEE, which is 430,000 engineers around the world. And we're also partnering with Rotary clubs, and there's 1.3 million, I think, now members of Rotary around the world. The largest non-political, non-religious organization around to do humanitarian projects. And there's a lot of resources available there that I think should be available to folks in MCLD, where truly the inspiration is coming from the community, which is looking for resources and often is not able to find the resources they need. But those two organizations, plus ours and plus others, are all sources of help for communities that have an idea and would like to do something about, in many cases, pulling themselves out of poverty. And Jacob's concept and what we're trying to do now too, beyond healthcare, involves, well, in our case, it's forming a collaborative of organizations who are going to be available to offer their services, so that if, for example, the community does their needs assessment and decides that they really need to have a borehole, then we will connect them up with an organization that does boreholes. Our easiest connection is with people that need solar power because they're off-grid and need reliable, inexpensive power to run whatever it is they want to run, and then offer other things to help use that power, such as developing women's farming cooperatives and having cold storage for their crops, and having electric vehicle charged by the solar collectors that lets them take things to market and so forth. So there's a lot of possibilities there, and I really want to get involved with MCLD to see how we can connect up with more communities that want to make a difference, that want to pull themselves out of whatever situation they're in.
Yeah, and I think also one thing is, I mean, and to the points that are coming up in the chat also, is the other thing is, so MCLD, right, is the national associations. So a lot of the programming, most of the programming and policy work is happening at individual national association levels. And then there's the places where it comes together at the global level across all of the national associations. And those are places where we can learn from each other across, and certain policy advocacy areas, which MCLD is very active in, that are, at the international level and is affected by where we have entry points. So, we obviously do a lot with USAID, which is in the US, because we have those entry points, but also it also affects many of the different national associations, given that USAID is, so active in different spaces. So I think to your point, MCLD, I think absolutely, and is getting, it seems like a lot of traction in certain policy areas on helping to create that policy, again, including in USAID's policy. I don't know about that as a potential revenue source. I mean, it's there are certain grants and things that can be applied for policy support. The other thing is that, the secretariat, the Global Assembly level, it stays lean also, so that it's not being like a competitor for funding for our members or our national associations. A lot of the funding that we get, we don't get a lot of funding, but what we do have, we channel, towards micro grants when possible towards different national associations to do things. And I think as, we continue to try to raise more funding, I think an important message there is like $5,000 US dollars for a funder in the US is not a big amount, but actually to Aya's, you know, what Aya's saying is that having you know, that you can, that's something to do something for programming at a national association level, and it's not small.
And
Yeah.
but if I can just and this is all love and kindness, but like I feel like that it sort of ties to a little bit of what I was saying about the old ways of doing things. And I feel like, you know, this is a problem that I've noticed in a lot of NGOs, INGOs, nonprofits is a very static way of looking at funding and how to get funded. And I think that there are so many different sources emerging right now. And, you know, MCLD as a secretariat with the knowledge that y'all all have can be a force. And there are, you know, platforms that allow for like a revenue generator, which would then allow MCLD DC to be self-sustaining and not have to worry about other grants, and then give y'all more ability to send those grants and funds and other things throughout the network. And so I think it's we can be creative. And I think within the structures that are set up, of course, for the organization, but I think that, you know, we have to be dynamic, because like what I is saying is right, is like, you know, there's so much potential for MCLD to be the force for good and light around the world, and one of the most influential.
Yeah.
Because it's you have local voices that are speaking up through the entire collective.
Exactly. I mean, 100% agree. And I think because of the way that we're structured, I mean, the secretariat is like tiny. So the way that it's structured is a lot of, you know, that creativity and those thinkings also are, you know, coming from the national associations and from the different members, and then being implemented in a collaborative way, because so much of our, you know, all of the secretariat's energy ends up being put towards bringing people together to be able to do that. And we couldn't do any of these things if we don't come together to then have those ideas and to have it actually be a voice for the different associations and members and communities who are part of it.
And I feel like I'm speaking a lot. I mean, I was a major inspiration for me today, but it's just like, I think it's y'all have to make sure, because he brought up a great point about, you know, you cannot give what you don't have. And so y'all need to make sure as a secretariat, y'all are valued and you're strong and you're and healthy in all aspects. So then the rest of the network, like, it allows you to really enhance and scale and have more freedom to think creatively. I think it's critical that not to drive action, but the roots, MCLD DC, like, you know, like, you guys need to be strong and supported, so that you can then support this global network.
Yeah. But also one thing just important with the restructure. So Washington DC is part of MCLD US, and then the global secretariat comprises some people from that, but it also comprises Steve, Pascal. So also people from other ones. And hopefully one of the things that we, you know, would hope would come if we get more, as we get more funding, is to be able to have more paid positions across different national associations who can serve both their national associations, but also the secretariat, because, you know, so, I mean, as you guys all know, so much of it is volunteer, and it's a lot of big time commitment. I know that you're putting in all of these really good points here, but feel free to also unmute and share.
And
that
Arthur
way.
as well. Like I didn't want to hijack the time, but
Otherwise, though, these are you guys are articulating points that I think are on all of our, but particularly I think Gunjan's mind of being able to raise more funding. And in fact, we're looking for someone to be a resource mobilization manager. That's a position that, so if you all know folks that are really great at that role, send them our way. So yeah, everybody's input and support on that is needed and welcome. And thank you,
And-
Aya, for inspiring Jacob to bring it up also.
And thank you, Nelly, for like continuing this space and allowing for some further dialogue. And so, yeah, I mean, as everyone who knows me, like I believe in MCLD and more than most things, and I want to ensure that, you know, it's good and that all of the national associations and organizations are good. So, whatever I can do to help with that, I'm committed.
Yeah. Well, if you know anybody who's interested in that role, that's a good starting point.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, I guess we will close today, but thank you. And as I said, yeah, if you all have any thoughts or feedback for next leadership calls, please do. And the global call is next Wednesday, that I'm looking forward to. So
Thanks,
thank you.
everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Aya. Thanks,
See you
Arthur.
next time.
Jacob.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.